Hello. Hello, world of YouTube. I'm calling from Scotland. Wow, this is a bit strange. This is my first ever go live. I'm just really having a bit of a play around with the streaming thing, so you'll have to bear with me. Um, I don't actually know how to work this. I don't know if anybody's watching this, but hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Susan. I'll wait a couple of seconds and then I'll tell you a little bit about myself. And it'd be great if anybody's watching, if people could come on and say hello. Um, and really today, I just want to experiment a bit with the live streaming and just find out what you guys would like to talk about. I don't know where in the world you are, whether you're somewhere where you are still in lockdown, certainly in Scotland and really the UK, we're still in lockdown here. So things are pretty boring. It's snowy here, which is very pretty on the one hand, but on the other, it kind of feels a bit like we're in cabin fever. Because we can go for walks, but none of the cafes are open or any of the other stuff that we used to do. So to be quite honest, I'm getting a bit fed up. I'm also homeschooling, which actually is okay. On the one hand, it's really good to have input into the kids' education. It sort of really feels, not for the first time, but it certainly feels like a valuable opportunity to have an input into what they're learning and they're building their future directly. We'll look back and see what we've done together and probably laugh about it. But on the other hand, it's just so boring. Just trying to stay motivated, trying to stick to a routine, trying to inspire. I don't know how the teachers do it. Well, I do actually. I think if I was paid to do it, it would be not so bad. If it wasn't my children, it wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. So yeah, that's just me. So as I said, I am from Scotland. I'm a mum of two children, aged 5 and 7. And yeah, we're just getting used to life in lockdown again. Don't know when it's going to end in Scotland. We've had this new variant that has hit the UK quite recently. So I think it might be quite some time before the vaccines reach myself and my children and the rest of my family. But hopefully, my parents, who are in their 70s, will get it sometime soon. But thank goodness nobody's been really unwell or anything that I know of. So, yeah, I guess the world's just kind of carrying on as normal. So, a little bit about me. I've been lots of things in my life. I'm currently a published children's author. I published a book in lockdown, which I know like lots of people are going to be, oh my God, she published a book in lockdown. Well done, her, pat on the back. But actually, it was a book, I must confess, that I wrote about 10 years ago, a children's story, and I've never done anything with it. I've had loads of feedback from people around me who have read it, who said, you've got to do something with it. It's really good and blah, blah, blah. But for whatever reason, I've just never really had the confidence to do anything with it. So it was only really when lockdown came, I was like, right, Susan, if you don't do something with it now, you're never, ever going to do anything with it. And it's going to really bug you. It's just going to sit there gathering dust. And then when you die, someone will uncover it and they'll be like, what the hell? Why has she done this, but just never put it out there? So I kind of decided to go down the Amazon route for the publishing because I feel it's got a really good reach worldwide. I think it's my story. Actually, funnily enough, I've got a copy of it right here. So it's called The Mystery of Inchbrae House. And it's a chapter book aimed at mid-grade children. So that would be, I guess, independent readers age 6+, or children that really enjoy having chapter books read to them at night by parents. But really, I've had feedback from adults as well who have said they've really enjoyed it. I actually had an online review from a 73-year-old who said they really enjoyed it. So there's no top age limit, there's no bottom age limit. It's really just for people that enjoy adventure mystery novels. I guess it is quite a traditional type of chapter book. I wrote it very much kind of inspired by books I used to read as a child. So I guess that would be things like Enid Blyton, Nancy Drew mysteries, that kind of thing. Famous Five, Roald Dahl. It's kind of got a bit of that sort of feel to it. And really, being from Scotland and where I live in Scotland, I'm lucky to have grown up really on the coast and have been able to go on some amazing holidays around Scotland, just to, get out and about and get some inspiration. So this story in particular is based in a fictional seaside town, which is on the coast, maybe some 30 miles away from Edinburgh. And it's really the story of how a girl, Muriel, my main character, overcomes adversity and, sad and tragic things that have happened in her family to show that she can be brave and forge friendships and inspire people to forgive and forget others. So that's really what it's all about. And as I say, I wrote it 10 years ago. When I wrote it, one of my many previous incarnations was when I used to be a lawyer. And I was actually on a secondment. I lived in London, but my firm sent me up to Edinburgh on a project, much to my disgust, because I just moved down to London from Scotland. So most people would jump at the chance, I'm sure. But for me, it was a bit of a busman's holiday heading back to Scotland again. And I got put up in a hotel called the Rutland Hotel, which, if anyone knows Edinburgh, it's a really fancy hotel in the city centre. And everybody was really jealous because I was living in this hotel for basically like 3 months. It sounds very ungrateful, but actually, anyone who's ever done it, anyone who's done the commute and lived in a hotel for 3 months at a time will know that the novelty very quickly wears off. So I don't know, I was just really hacked off at being sent back to Edinburgh from London when I just, after months and months of badgering my boss, got a space in the London team from my firm. And yeah, just being there was a bit depressing. It was February in Scotland. Much like now, it's actually a really nice sunny day here, but February in Scotland can be pretty miserable and dark. Not much daylight hours, and it's really, really cold at times. So I just wasn't having much fun. I was there on my own. The other person from my firm that was there was a much younger guy who had friends there already. So they were all going to the pub to do kind of man stuff. And I just, I had no inclination to do that. And I just wasn't in the mood, just didn't really feel like going to the pub with those guys. So I basically used to live between work, which was a 5-minute work away, and this hotel room number 2, and used to just go home in the evenings, back to my hotel room, shut myself away, have a packet sandwich for my tea, and that was that. I joined a gym, so I did go to the gym sometimes, but a lot of the time I was just keeping myself to myself and, yeah, just being a bit down in the dumps, really. So anyway, about a week into that, of doing that, I don't know, some sort of inspiration just took hold of me. I've always loved writing. I've always wanted to write, but I've just never, at the moment, had just never been there. There hadn't been kind of that sort of golden moment where all of a sudden a story comes to you. But for some reason, in the depths of that situation, I just got really, really inspired to write. So I sat down at my laptop when I got home from work every night, and I would write, 5-6 hours at a time every single night during this placement. And at the end of it, I had the first draft of my novel. And that was really it to begin with, because I hadn't really told anyone that I'd been writing. I'm not someone that particularly enjoys talking, or I don't know. I've just been brought up to kind of not be seen to kind of show off about things or big myself up. I don't know if it's like a British trait. But yeah, that was it. So the book was there. It just sat, not in this form. It was just like literally on my computer, about 200 odd pages of writing, edited, but it was there. And I eventually plucked up the courage to ask my mum and dad to read it, and my mum was like, "Oh my god, it's really really good! It's so good!" And I was like, "Yeah, mom, you're obviously going to say it's good because you're my mom." So she tried to encourage me to show some other people. So I did show a couple of people who gave me good feedback too. But it's one thing getting really amazing feedback from friends and family, but it's another thing actually getting feedback from, well, one, the people who are going to read it, i.e. in my case, predominantly middle grade age children. And another thing, altogether, actually putting it out there into the wide world as a publishable thing, you've got to have a think about what it is you're actually wanting to get from publishing a book. So as many writers will tell you, it's not something that makes a lot of money. It's a bit of a labor of love. It's got to be a passion. And if you're lucky, like J.K. Rowling, who's obviously written some amazing, amazing books, I'm not going to knock her for that, but the chances of actually making it big in the children's novel market, especially when there are so many celebrities with track records, people like David Walliams is always at the top of the bestseller children's books list because he's a known entity. He's a track record for being very funny, if you like that kind of thing. So people like that are always going to get snapped up by the big publishers who know that they can sell like a lot of money, make money on it, get people like Quentin Blake, who illustrated for Roald Dahl, actually doing the illustrations for David Walliams. And basically it's a formula that works, as the Roald Dahl books are just loved across the board by most children. And I think David Walliams has done a very good job of kind of copying the formula. I must say I'm not a massive fan of his books for various reasons. I'm not going to get all controversial on here about that. It's maybe a topic for another time on stream. But he's someone that's done very well out of children's books, and look at any of the bestseller list and he's always kind of up at the top. So it's definitely a formula that works. But if you're more of a niche market, perhaps, like I said, my book itself is probably in a bit more of a traditional feel about it. I wouldn't compare myself to anyone, but I would say if as a child, if you liked Enid Blyton type mysteries or Nancy Drew type mysteries, that kind of thing, where you've got a really strong female character, and a sidekick. In my case, the sidekick's a young boy called Christopher, who my main character Muriel meets up with and goes off and has an amazing adventure. But interestingly, the feedback I've got, I totally thought it was going to be something that girls would love, and boys wouldn't be so keen on. But in actual fact, it's always ever surprising who likes your work when it goes out there. I've actually had a lot of feedback from young boys who have found the story really exciting, really good, a strong boy character is in there, so that appeals too. But I also think it maybe says something about kids today, where it doesn't really matter who the lead character is. I think the thematic side of it is more important. Not everybody identifies with either the male or the female. I think a lot of it is to do with sort of the general story and where it goes. So I don't know if it really does matter if it's a strong lead female or a strong lead male. I think it's the overall story and the overall adventure that matters. So yeah, that's kind of how it all happened. So after I'd started showing people a very rough draft of it, I went through the process of getting the book edited up, and just some kind of independent feedback, which I paid for an editor to actually go over it and just give me some objective, professional feedback, because I think it's important. And obviously there are things that you get fed back on that you're not going to like. There are things you are going to like, but I think it's really important to kind of see any feedback as not being a personal criticism. I think constructive criticism is so important. So I did that. And as a former lawyer, I know what it's like when you kind of read something and then kind of put red pen and bleed all over it and then give it back to the person that's written it. It can be really soul destroying. But anyway, You just got to do it. You've got to take it on the chin. You've got to consider incorporating some of the changes that these experts may have for you. I did have one lady edit the book at one point who just wasn't on the same page. I think she was very anti Enid Blyton, which I think was the first big sort of disaster. I think I'd been paired up with an editor in a firm of editors that just didn't like children's books, particularly sort of 1960s, 1970s children's books. That's not what mine is. It's set in the present day. But nonetheless, for some reason, she didn't like it. But I think she was more of a fantasy writer. But you're not going to please everyone. Not everyone's going to like your output. And I think that's really important to understand, that everybody has different ideas about what they like. For example, I'm a prolific reader. I'm always reading novels. My preferred, well, I actually usually have two books on the go at a time. Actually, I often have like a non-fiction book and a fiction book on the go. So I'm a total geek, total bookworm. But when I read fiction, I'm quite, I don't know, I'm quite sort of open about the fact that I don't particularly enjoy things like science fiction. And there's a certain branch of fantasy that, fantasy, I mean sort of wizards and dragons as opposed to like erotica. But there's certain brand of fantasy that I just can't get into at all. So I'm usually not someone who will experiment in those genres. I quite like thrillers. I like a sort of a fantasy light. So if it's a little bit mystical and magical, I can cope. But if it's, you know, The Hobbit or something, I just couldn't get into The Hobbit. Although I quite enjoyed the Lord of the Rings films. I don't know, what about you? Do you like, what kind of genres do you like? You can maybe put some comments in there. Yeah, so let's have a look at some of the comments. Hmm. Some amazing comments there. I do like fish. I probably am more of a bass person. But anyway, fish comments aside, if you've got any questions for me, um, I'm happy to talk about anything to do with the writing process. As I say, this is my first ever live stream, so yeah, no idea what to expect from this, but it's been quite fun to come on and just talk off the top of my head. So yeah, I'll leave it there for now, but thank you for watching. Bye.